Hi, I'm Carmel Crimmins in Dublin. It's Wednesday, February 11th. Today, Canada reels from its worst school shooting in decades. The FBI releases images of a masked person in the hunt for Savannah Guthrie's mother. Trump and Netanyahu will meet at the White House with Iran at the top of the agenda. And Trump plans to scrap the government's ability to regulate greenhouse gases. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. We start with breaking news from Canada, where a shooter has killed 9 people at a high school and residence in British Columbia.
This is a devastating and unimaginable tragedy. We can't imagine what the community is going through.
David Eby, the province's premier there. 6 people were found dead inside the high school in the remote community of Tumbler Ridge, 2 more at a residence connected to the incident, and another person died on the way to the hospital. A person believed to be the shooter was also found dead in the school from what appears to be a self-inflicted injury. Police described the shooter as a female in a dress with brown hair. There's been new developments in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Authorities have released images showing an armed person in a ski mask tampering with a door camera at her house. The images, which authorities say were previously inaccessible, show someone disabling the camera in the early hours of February 1st, the same time Guthrie's pacemaker disconnected from her phone. The 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie was abducted from her Tucson home 10 days ago. Investigators looking into her disappearance questioned a man detained during a traffic stop south of Tucson. The New York Times is reporting that the man has been released. Guthrie's family say they believe she's still alive and are pleading for help. To stay up to date on this story and others, check out Reuters.com and the Reuters app. To Washington, D.C. now, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to meet with Donald Trump in the White House today, and the pair are expected to focus on Iran. The Trump administration is currently engaged in diplomacy to limit Iran's nuclear program, but according to our Jerusalem correspondent Mayan Lubel, Netanyahu may have bigger ambitions for their meeting.
The message that Netanyahu's office is giving is that any deal with Iran needs to also include curbs on its ballistic missile program and its funding of its proxies, i.e. Hezbollah, Hamas, etc. Iran still retains between 1,000 to 2,000 missiles, but Israel has identified some efforts by the Iranians to rebuild and restore the program. There's no secret Israel, just like the U.S., would be very happy to see the Iranian leadership change. That is not something, though, that I think anyone in Israel thinks can be done with a couple of bombs. It's also not something that can be done by an external power. Some officials have said that Gaza will be on the agenda as well. The United States wants to see an end to the war in Gaza. It wants to see a move on Trump's 20-point plan, rebuilding in Gaza. It wants an international force to keep the peace. And the main question now, which is the question of Hamas disarming, laying down its weapons, has so far rejected any idea of laying down its weapons. So it's very unclear how the Trump plan could go forward.
The Trump administration is set to overturn a key scientific finding this week, one that's been the legal foundation for federal greenhouse gas regulation since the Obama era. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin is calling it the largest act of deregulation in the history of the United States. But the industries that would benefit from this move aren't celebrating just yet. Climate reporter Valerie Volkovitsky explains.
The endangerment finding, which was made in 2009 under the Obama administration, basically was a scientific finding that said greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide emissions endangers public health. And therefore, the EPA has an obligation or the authority to regulate those emissions from mobile sources, which is cars, and then eventually power plants, industrial facilities. By removing the endangerment finding, it's removing that kind of legal foundation for all of the agency's greenhouse gas regulations. And this administration, they're very much, they've repealed every major regulation that has to do with greenhouse gas emissions. They want to make it easier for companies to to do business without having to invest in, controls or kind of focus on reducing emissions.
And while it might save companies money, oil and gas groups aren't celebrating just yet.
Many companies are concerned about the fact that without this kind of federal authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions, that they're going to end up in a kind of a period like they were in before, where they'll face a myriad of local public nuisance lawsuits, state lawsuits. They'll also face, a patchwork of regulations because states have their own greenhouse gas regulations. And without the federal government having kind of the federal standard that kind of preempts everything, these companies are going to face legal uncertainty and regulatory uncertainty.
Trump's top immigration officials faced a grilling from Democrats on Capitol Hill Tuesday, the first hearing since 2 U.S. citizens were killed by federal agents in Minneapolis. The Republican chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, Andrew Garbarino, called for a full investigation into those killings in a break with Trump supporters in his party.
There must be complete and impartial investigation. I expect each of our witnesses to keep this committee fully informed as the investigations run their course.
Another grilling on Capitol Hill Tuesday, this time for Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
Did you in fact make the visit to Jeffrey Epstein's private island?
I did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies.
Lutnick says he's done nothing wrong after Epstein files show he appears to have visited Epstein's island for lunch in 2012, 7 years after he claimed to have cut off all ties, prompting calls from both sides of the aisle for him to resign. And a newly uncovered FBI interview also raises new questions about President Trump's claim that he knew nothing about Epstein's crimes. In 2006, when Epstein's first sex crime charges became public, the police chief in Palm Beach, Florida, received a call from Trump, who cited him as saying, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." The Justice Department says it's not aware of any evidence that the president contacted law enforcement 20 years ago. US Attorney General Pam Bondi will be in front of a House panel later today to face questions on the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. Paramount Skydance is sweetening its bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. The company didn't raise its $108 billion offer, but is throwing in billions in cash incentives and even offering to cover the breakup fee Warner Brothers would owe Netflix. But Warner Brothers still favours Netflix's competing offer, and shareholders are expected to vote by April. For more markets news and analysis, listen to our sister podcast Morning Bid. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. And finally for today, it's really not the stuff Olympic dreams are made of. Norwegian biathlete Sturla Holm Lergrade, after landing the bronze in the men's 20k biathlon, burst into tears and apologised to his girlfriend for cheating and begged for forgiveness. And he opted to air his confession during a TV interview. Lergrade called her the gold medal in his life. And for today's recommended read, how 24 Buddhist monks have arrived in Washington, D.C. after walking over 2,000 miles across 9 states. They started their walk for peace in Texas more than 3 months ago, walking through winter storms, sometimes barefoot, to spread a message of peace and compassion. You can see photos from their arrival by following the link in the pod description. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.